We're just going to practice factoring with a number in front of the x squared, a coefficient. And so whenever you have an a value, it's a little harder. You could still kind of use the same process, but there are some things that are different. Okay? So the first step, remember, is always to look for a GCF. If you find one, you want to take it out. The reason you want to do that is because it makes numbers smaller. And smaller numbers are always going to be easier to work with than bigger numbers. Okay? All right, so now the difference here is that before we were just taking the factors of 12, but now I have to multiply these. So it's the factors of 2 times 12. So it's the factors of 12. Okay? And so I'm going to write my factors of 12, 1 and 24. Remember, I like to go in order to make sure that I have them all. So then that's 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And one nice thing about going in order, when you get to the end and there's two numbers that are right near each other, there's probably no other answer that works, because the only other number I haven't tried is 5, but 5 doesn't go into 24. Okay? So now I have my factors, and I'm trying to find which factors add to give me a 10. So which of these pairs of numbers add to give me a 10? And it's 4 and 6. So what happens now is that we're going to put the 4 and 6 there. The 2x squared just comes down. The 12 comes down. But I have a 4x and a 6x. The order doesn't matter. If you do it in a different order, sometimes your process will look different until the very end, but you should still get it right. So now when I look at my 4x and my 6x, I have to know what kind of signs they have to be so that I get a positive 10. And the only way I can get a positive 10 is by adding these. Okay. And then the next one is I'm going to separate it into equal groups. So I have a group of 2 and a group of 2. And now we take our GCF like we've been doing before. So what's the number that goes into 2x squared and 4x? And I should be able to take out a 2x. Let me zoom up. When I take out a 2x squared divided by 2x, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it's a 1. I had 2 x's, I'm dividing by 1, so I'm left with 1. And then if I divide this by 2x, 4 divided by 2 is 2. The sign comes down because it's plus. And x divided by x, those are gone. So there's my first parentheses. Now I do the same thing here. I look for factors of 6 and 12. And my GCF of 6 and 12 is 6. So I take out the 6. 6x divided by 6 is x. And 12 divided by 6 is 2. Now, if you get the same number inside the parentheses, then you've done it correct. And that is actually your first factor. So for this problem, my first factor is x plus 2. The way you find your other factor, it's the numbers in front. It's the things that you factored out. And so my second factor is 2x plus 6. And that's it. Okay? It does get a little harder sometimes when we have minuses, but we're going to follow that same process. The order of these doesn't matter as long as you have an x plus 2 and a 2x plus 6, then you're good. Okay, so let's look at a couple examples where we're going to factor. So 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. So the first thing you need to do, remember, is that you multiply the first and the last. So you multiply A and C, and that's what you write the factors for. So I'm writing factors for 12. 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And I'm looking for the factors that are going to add to give me 7. There it is, 3 and 4. So the first number comes down, the last number comes down, and then I need to put in a 3x and a 4x. Now what you have to do is you have to look back at this middle term and figure out what your sign's going to be. Since I have a positive 7, these should both be positive. I'm going to put parentheses around the first two, parentheses around the last two, and now I'm going to factor it out. The term that goes into 2x squared and 3x is just 1x, so I'm going to take out an x. If I had 2x's and I took one out, I'm left with 1. If I had 1x and I took it out, I'm just left with the 3. And here, I look for the number that goes into 4 and 6, and that's a 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And if you notice, I have the same parentheses, so that tells me I did it right. So my first answer is 2x plus 3, and my second answer is this number's outside, x plus 2. Okay? All right, let's try another one. And this time I'm going to give you guys a chance to try and work it out. You're going to need to hit pause. So the first thing I need you to do is I need you to figure out what you're multiplying and what you're finding the factors of. Once you do that, you could press play again. Okay, so I had to find my factors of 12, and this time I'm looking for factors of 12 that subtract to give me 11. Well, that's these. Okay, I usually just go in the same order where it's the first number, the small number first. So my 4x comes down, 4x squared comes down, 1x, 12x, minus 3. So now what I need to do is I need to figure out what sign I have to get in the negative 11. Well, since I'm subtracting, I know they have to be different signs. So since my middle sign is negative, that means my big number is negative. So I draw parentheses and draw parentheses. So what goes into 4x squared and 1x is just an x. So if I take out an x, I'm left with 4x plus 1. Now, if you remember in some other assignments that I've said, if you have a leading negative, you have to take the negative out. This is where it's important. If you don't take the negative out, then you're not going to get the same parentheses. So the biggest number that goes into 12 and 3 is 3. So it's negative 3. Negative 12 divided by negative 3 is positive 4x. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is positive 1. So if you see, our parentheses are the same. So that's our first answer, 4x plus 1. And our second answer is the x minus 3. Okay, what we're going to do now is, because we've done a couple of those examples, we're going to do some when we have to solve. And remember, solving is the first thing you have to do is you make it equal 0, and then you factor it. And from there, you should see what you have to do. You should be able to see it. Okay, so let's look at this. So I have 6x squared minus x equals 2. So the first thing I need to do is I need to move this this 2 over. You want to keep it in order where it's x squared plus x plus a number equals 0. If you take it out of order, you might get confused with factoring. It may seem small, but anything to help you visualize it will help. So when I get rid of this positive 2, I subtract 2, so I get 6x squared minus x minus 2 equals 0. So now I need to factor this. And once again, I don't know how it is, but each problem I've had so far is factors of 12. I guess there's a lot of ways to make 12. Okay, so 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I'm looking for the ones that subtract to give me a 1. And that's the 3 and the 4. So I'm going to have 6x squared, 3x, 4x, minus 2. And I got those because I brought the first and last one down. Now I need to figure out what signs go where for the middle two terms. And on my original trinomial, it's a negative 1x. And the only way I can get a negative 1x is if I have a negative 4 and a positive 3. So I draw my parentheses. The number that goes into both of these is 3x. So I'm left with 2x plus 1. And this one, I have a leading negative, so it's going to be negative 2 and 2x plus 1. And miraculously, we have the same parentheses again, so we know we've done it right. And so my first step is going to be 2x plus 1 and 3x minus 2 equals 0. But now remember, when you have something that equals 0, you have to set each one equal to 0. So it'll be 2x plus 1 equals 0, and 3x minus 2 equals 0. So I solve both of these. To get rid of a plus 1, I minus 1, so I get negative 1. And to get rid of a times 2, I divide by 2, so I get x is negative 1/2. There's the first answer. For the second answer, I have to get rid of a minus 2. The way you get rid of a minus 2 is you add 2, so I get 3x is 2. And the way you get rid of that times 3 is dividing by 3, so I get x is 2 over 3. So there's your two answers. Okay. So remember, when you're factoring, the first thing you do is you look for a GCF to see if you can factor it out. And then once that you can't factor anymore, you multiply the first and the last, find the middle term, put parentheses, and factor things out. And that is it.